Yeah. Boa tarde para todos. Tudo bem?
Tudo bem.
Tudo bem. Okay, so this is all for me now. So sorry. So yeah, I hope my English is way better than my Portuguese. And yeah, so I'm really flattered. I hope can everybody see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah. Tá bom. Ótimo. So yeah, I'm really flattered to be here with you today. I was really glad when Sophia asked me, and yeah, today I want to give maybe some insights on agile estimation and forecasting. So that in the end, then you know that if it takes 10 seconds to eat this cookie, how long it will take to eat all the others. Okay, so maybe a few words about, yeah, you and Kerber Digital. So first start with Kerber Digital. Kerber Digital, or the Kerber Group, is a mechanical engineering, comes from the mechanical engineering industry, and has about 10,000 employees worldwide in over 100 different companies. And Kerber Digital is one of those companies. We are the very first digital business unit that was founded just a few years ago, like 3 years ago. And we have about 100 employees in Berlin, in Karlsruhe, and now in Porto as well. So Porto, we are coming. And we're hiring, of course, I'm supposed to say that. So maybe about me. Yeah, I work as a corporate agile coach. And what makes me doing this is that I'm a certified Scrum Master and certified product owner. And I worked within the software industry for now, about 16 years. In all kind of different companies. So from mobile video applications to food delivery services, I really experienced a lot of different companies. And what is my job at Kerber Digital? It's actually training and coaching of all of the teams, of our worldwide teams. So within the whole Kerber group. Coaching, of course, in agile methodologies, agile best practices, and doing so, of course, supporting the group-wide digital transformation process. Right. So this is all about me and my job. So now you know who I am. Okay. So everybody ready? Can we start? Everybody's fine? Okay. If you have questions during the session, please just give some kind of sign and I'll try to catch it. So then let's start. Estimation. So I want to start with a little exercise. And for this exercise, I ask you to not use Google. Okay. Google is forbidden. I know it's hard. And what I want you to do, guys, is what you see here are different buildings. And these buildings, they're actually, their dimension is really proportional, right? So you see there's a little house there, and this house represents 8 meters of height. And now I want all of you to, take a little bit of time, think a little bit, and give your estimates in the chat. How high is the London Eye? Please, everybody in the chat, write what you think how high the London Eye might be. And please do not Google. Let's see what we get here. 110, 120. Don't copy and paste just the results. Come on, be brave. Okay, 180, 80, 70, 100. Woo. Okay, that's quite a lot. Huh? So, everybody done? I don't think so. Okay, let's then see if the others are Too shy. Ah, okay. Another one. So we're having quite different results, right? So we're having, there's even coming some more. Ranges from 80, is that a little less? No, 77, 70 actually. 70 to up to, yeah, 180 I see here. Okay, so from 70 to 180, that's obviously quite a huge range that we see here, right? This was a tough one, I have to admit. Now, I want to ask you now another question. For this question, I now try to launch the poll. So everybody, please answer the question now. I hope you see it. It should be coming up. Yeah. Okay. Please answer the question. What is the second highest building? The second highest building you see here. What is it? The second highest. Mm-hmm. So 26 people voted, 27. I give you some more time. I hope it's good to see. The second highest building. 81% voted. Nobody else? 6 people missing? Nobody wants to vote anymore. Okay, so then I show you the results of your vote. Can you see it? Oh wait, share the results. Can you see it? Yeah. Okay, so 77% of you said that it is the Gherkin, so it's the vast majority. Some people thought it might be the London Eye, 6%, and some thinks the Great Pyramid. But the certainty with 77% is quite high. So let's see about the results. What are actually the results? I guess you're pretty curious, don't you? Oh, maybe not that curious. So let's see. I have to click. These are the results. So that seems to be quite an interesting result, right? We have to imagine we had, when I asked you how high the London Eye was, it ranged from 70 to 180. So we had quite a huge differences here. And I guess nobody actually nailed it. I have to take a look in the chat. Sophia, please tell me if I'm wrong. But obviously, 77% of you have been pretty much right answering the question, what was the second highest building? So now my question to the audience, why is that?
I got a little confused on this question.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing is that we can be confused for being the second place from the right. And that was the first confusion, then I corrected. But the second thing was like, I stopped and thinking, the question is on the image or the real building?
The images should represent the real buildings. So this is.
But I didn't know. So.
Okay.
Well, for me, it was the fact that when the poll came up, it was in front of the Great Pyramid, and I could not see the top of the Great Pyramid, and I thought they were ordered by size. So
come on.
I selected the second one on the left.
Yeah, it was the same for me. I did the same mistake.
So we now know who didn't vote for
the two people that voted for the Great Pyramid.
We clarified that now. Okay. So, but for all the others that were not confused and could see the things properly, but also, of course, for you, why do you think? Why was it? Obviously, was it easier for you to get the exact height, or was it easier to say what is the second highest? What was easier?
It's by comparison, because we do it by comparison. So we have a sort of a reference, and then we can count from the reference down in this case, I suppose.
Everybody else found it easier to do the second vote? or who didn't find it easier? Let's put it like this. No one.
We
Yeah,
have some answers in the chat, Ronnie.
what was that?
We have some answers in the chat.
I see. So second highest is relative measure. Exactly. Instead of identifying a specific number, comparing is much easier. Exactly. Exactly. This is what it's all about, right? So humans are just not made to give an absolute estimate, like I asked you in the first round, right? But we are really good in giving relative estimates. So and why is that? The actual reason for this is it actually lays in our genes. So if you think like where humans come from, the history of human development, most of the time we were living in caves and traveling in groups to hunt for food, right? This is like the majority of human development, and only the past 3,000 or 4,000 years we did something else, but the other part we did that. So simple question: if you would live in a stone age, right, and you see that there's a hungry grizzly coming towards you, right, it obviously it was not important for you to know, okay, this grizzly bear is 35 kilometers an hour fast or 36.5 kilometers an hour, but what was really important to you was that you can see, okay, this grizzly is way faster than me. How far away am I from my cave? Do I still have enough time to make it? Or do I have to climb the next tree? And if I have to climb the next tree, is it higher than the grizzly and will it save me, right? So these are the things that that we grow, that humans grow up with. And this is why we're so good in giving relative estimates. And that is why we're so bad with absolute measurement, right? So, and knowing that, we can make this, we can make use of this, right? So instead of trying to always give absolute measurements because we're always asked for it, we can make use of the fact that we are really good in relative estimates, right? And so how do we do that? And this is what I first want to go into details, how we're going to do that, right? How do we turn this into our advantage? So let's say we want to build a house, right? So we have different things to do when we want to build a house. So how do we start? Actually, it's quite simple. We just first list all of the tasks that we need to do to build this house, right? So for example, we need to have a heating, we need to have a swimming pool, build a roof, windows, carpets, decorations, and so on and so on. So we just put all this task down, right? And then we do the following. We take the two things that we think is the heaviest thing or the most complicated thing to do, and what is the most easiest thing to do, right? And we just put them on top and on bottom. So obviously building the walls is one of the most complex, most hardest things. The amount of work is highest. We also have to take in consideration risk and uncertainty. So for example, when we talk about features like software development, not of the house, this would be if we implement a feature, how much changing does it involve? Do we have to touch old brittle code with no automated tests? So this is referring to software development. And also we would have to take in consideration complexity. So what is complexity? Is how many interdependencies do I have, right? If I have to build walls, I have to really think of a lot of things, right? Things need to go on the walls, statics and so on. If I want to lay down a carpet, there's not much interdependencies for laying down a carpet, right? So we're putting the task with the highest and with the lowest effort, amount of work So we have at least some borders. And what we do next is we sort all other tasks according in reference to these two things. So if I say, okay, building walls equals to actually build the swimming pool, this would be at the same level, right? Or building the roof is a little less, and then the windows, and for example. So we just do what we just learned, with you're good in. We can say something is relatively more or less difficult, has more or less work than the ones that we defined, right? And so we just place them. And then, is there a question? No, no question. Okay. And then what we do next is we just give numbers. So what kind of numbers do we give? I guess most of you are probably familiar with this, the Fibonacci sequence. Who is not? Who doesn't know about the Fibonacci sequence? Please sign. It's no shame to not be. I don't see any signs. So, okay, you're all professionals. Awesome. Okay, yeah. So what we do is we give this Fibonacci sequence, which stands for the fact that complexity raises not linear, as we sometimes might think, but complexity usually raises exponentially, right? So something that that is less complex, you cannot just double it. If it is 2 times as complex, it raises exponentially. This is shown through many discoveries that have been made. So we choose the Fibonacci sequence, or we choose a system that is based on the Fibonacci sequence, right? So between one and the other number of the Fibonacci sequence, it's about a 66% raise, more or less. It doesn't always 66, but more or less between one number and the other is 66%. So this pretty much exponentially. And as Fibonacci doesn't look that pretty, we're using story points, right? So I guess you all are also aware of story points. Who's not? Who has never seen story points before? Okay. All pros here. That's good. So yeah, this is why we use story points that represents the Fibonacci sequence, not the exact one, but we use story points, so we get a relative estimate for the effort, right? And this is how we did the first step, the estimation. So this is usually also the point where most people stop. So I'm pretty sure all of you have a really well refined backlog, right? And your backlog all has story points, is that correct? More or less, ask the PO, I don't know, okay. So, but I guess all of you know that backlogs usually, they come well refined with story points. But no, honest answer, who of you has a backlog that represents the value of an issue?
I do.
Who's I? Tatiana.
Yeah.
Good. Great. How
I'm
you
a
do that?
product owner. I'm a product owner, by the way.
Okay. Good. So you're a good example, Tatiana.
Thanks.
The most teams that I work with, if I ask them, okay, what is the value of this feature or if this issue, yeah, people start to shake, right? So I guess being a Scrum, probably most of you or some of you are Scrum Masters as well, you probably know the situation. And so today I want to talk about how can we change that? Because if we only take in consideration the complexity of an issue, we might miss a really important dimension, which is the value of something. If you just develop the things that are less complexity, yeah, okay, then you maybe are efficient, but do you really maximize the value of your product if you don't know the value? Probably not. So how can you do that? And the way of doing this is actually quite simple or quite equal. So you actually do the same, right? So again, relative estimate. So you can choose any scale you want, but I would not recommend to use an exponential scale or a Fibonacci sequence-based scale. Why not? Because unfortunately, unlike complexity, value doesn't rise exponentially. I know we would love to, but value usually is not like this. So my recommendation to you would be use a scale which is linear. You don't even need to have the same numbers. Is there a question? No? Okay. Okay, so yeah, we just proceed like we did before. So take a scale, let's say 0 to 1,000 points, and we take value points. Let's call them value points. And you just do like we did before. So you give some value. You just say, okay, the highest one, the walls have the highest value. Obviously, we need walls, and we also need a roof. Without walls and roof, it's probably really unpleasant to sit in a house without walls and roof. Most of you might agree, even if it's really hot in Porto. But I guess it's raining sometimes. So yeah, you just do the same as you did before. And then what you can do is wait, I clicked too fast. So then we add the value points to our task as well. And then there is something that we can do, which is actually pretty simple, but really powerful. We can calculate what I call the value score. So what you simply do is you take the number of value points and you divide it to the story points, which are your complexity, and you get the value score. And so what does the value score tell you? Well, it's actually quite simple. A high value score means that you get much value for less effort, and a low value score means you get few value for much effort. Straightforward, pretty simple way. Tatiana, do you do it like this, or how do you do that?
No, we don't make a calculation. We just order it on the backlog for the high value to the low value.
Ah, so
but
you're value driven.
Yeah, but we don't do a calculation, so it's
okay.
just our sense.
Okay, I see. Okay, interesting. So now that we did that, how do we continue? So, well, you can now come and say, okay, perfect. As you just said, Tatiana, if you do it like this, you can actually just go and say, okay, we take our value score more or less, right? And we just put it in order of the value score, right? So then this would be the result here of our backlog if we just sort our tasks that we have to do to build our house based on the value score. Now, when we see this, what would you say? Does it make sense to have a backlog like this for building a house? Especially as heating is not needed, I know.
And you cannot have heating without walls anyway.
Exactly. So this method is not just a simple formula. You can just apply it and then just take it, and the AI does the rest. Of course, you still have to use human brain to sort it, but it gives you something that is really valuable because it helps you in ordering. So if we see this, you say, okay, this is my basis. So now coming from a value maximized backlog, what you want to have, of course, is a value optimized backlog, right? So quite obviously you need to first build the walls and the roof, and then you can do the sorting more or less based on the value score, right? So and then you come to have a value optimized backlog, mainly sorted on the value score, but not only. And this is what you want to have being a product owner, right? Because we remember what is the main task of a product owner is to maximize the value of the product, but actually to optimize the value of the product, right? And this is how you easily come to a backlog to optimize your backlog. So having this now, it's a nice start. We can now start building our house. Let's start building our house. And let's say we have our very first iteration, right? And in our very first iteration, we say, okay, we commit to build our walls, right? And we still with our commitment, we stay with our story points. We say, okay, we can build the walls and it's 100 story points. And we might come to the point that, yeah, we did quite well, right? We started to build the walls, but then Corona came and everybody had to go home. So it's just the walls that it's not really finished, right? So our achievement within the very first iteration or sprint or however you want to call it is 0. But then we smarten up a little bit, right? So for the second iteration, we say, okay, maybe that was a little bit too ambitious. So what we think is we can maybe build the walls and the roof in the second iteration because, well, half of the walls are built, right? It works on my computer, we know all that. Therefore, we say, okay, we try to build the walls and the roof, right? And doing so, let's say we complete it, right? So we then come to a velocity of 70 because in 2 iterations, we committed to 140 points. No, 240. So in 2 iterations, 140 divided by 2 iterations is 70. So our average velocity is 70, right? And with this knowledge, just as I say, it is quite easy to now forecast how long does it take to build a house, right? But it's not forecasting based on, yeah, your belly feeling, yeah, but it is actually based on statistical data. And this is what all our empiric approaches are for, right? So I can just say, okay, what scope is left? It's 180 story points left. And you can say, okay, based on my velocity, which is 70, it would need 2.5 iterations to complete the house, right? So if your iteration is, I don't know, 2 months, you would then probably need 5 months to finish. And then usually starts a discussion with your stakeholders or the people that want to live in that house, because I can tell you, if you build this house in Germany, you want to be done pretty soon because the summer is short this year. So you better move in the house soon. And so you, based on your now value optimized backlog, you could decide, okay, do I really need to have the swimming pool done? Do I really need to have the carpets there and the decoration before I move in the house? Probably not, right? And this is the big advantage of a value optimized backlog, that you can say, okay, if I just move in after the plumbing is done, then I'm with, yeah, actually 73 story points, which means that if I speed up a little, I can probably make it in 1 iteration. And I'm done moving in my nice house before winter comes. And winter in Berlin especially is ugly. It's really ugly. Cannot recommend to come to Berlin in wintertime. So, and this is the big advantage. This is the way how you can build your estimates relatively and come to a value optimized backlog that also gives you a proper ground for forecasting. And this is all the magic. And now I'm open for questions and discussions.
Hi, Ronny. I have a question. Might be one of the most basic ones because I'm also starting on this area. Just so I can get an understanding of how you come to the number of value points, if I'm mistaken, the VP. So while for the SP you try to get an agreement between the team in itself, the VP, I assume it comes directly from the product owner, right? Because there's not going to be usually the stakeholders or the end customer or the clients in the meetings where it's developed all the user stories, right?
Well, I would actually say that while giving story points is a meeting between the product owner usually and the team, right, the development
Yeah.
team, giving the value score, I would recommend to actually include your main stakeholders, right? I would not recommend to give it any kind of unit like dollars, euros, or whatever, because then you start with bullshit business casing. I guess you all have seen that. Then people make up with my feature, I earn billions of dollars, and suddenly with the search function, you are more worse than Google. So I would not do that. Just stay with a scale of 0 to 2,000 or whatever you think like, and then have together with the stakeholders negotiate, make a relative negotiate. But again, don't go down giving it any unit. You end up with just stupid things.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We
Further
have a
questions?
question on the chat. Actually, we have two. Ronny, can you see them? Do you want me to read them through?
However you feel like.
Okay, so first one, shouldn't we calculate instead value score per story point?
Calculate instead value score per story points. What, Pedro? What can you go into details? What do you mean instead of? That we should not have value score? Pedro left. No, Pedro. Okay, so.
Pedro Reis, are you there?
I think he's still here. Pedro Reis.
Pedro Reis.
Pode,
agora vai.
Can you hear me? Sim, sim. Pode fazer tua pergunta mesmo alta pro Ronny.
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I was having some problem with the micro. I was saying, so with the calculation I see, for instance, for heating, so you will deliver 46 points of value, and it will cost you, for instance, 13 story points, so effort. So to know which is the item that will deliver more value, in my perspective, it would be to divide the points of value by the story points. And that would give me the value point per story point. That would be my perspective. Do you think it's a possible approach, or how do you see this?
So instead of having the, let's see, go back to the calculation. So just that I understand you right. You would calculate not the value against the effort, but the effort against the value. Is that right?
So when you have, for instance, something that gives you 10 points of value, like build walls, and it costs you 100 story points, that means you can deliver 1 point of value per each story point, per each 10 story points. And then you would order how much it costs you in story points, each point of value to deliver.
Yeah, you can do this calculation. If you want to come to a value optimized backlog, I would still recommend to go for the value score, because obviously you just don't want to have focus on the value, but you want to get the most of the less effort, right? So your approach would be most effective. The other approach is most efficient. And usually the most efficient approach, unless you work for Deutsche Bank or something like that, where you don't need to care about resources or money, I would always go for the most efficient approach, which would be the value score. I guess this is answered. Then Paulo?
We have a question from Paul.
Sorry.
Paulo,
Can
go
I
ahead.
do it, Sarah? Okay, so
yes, go ahead, Paul.
What key aspects do you include, or do you usually include when measuring, estimating the value points? Sales revenues, customer satisfaction, others? What do you suggest?
Yeah, that is usually a tough thing, right? Like,
yes,
That really is. I would recommend that you, before you start doing this, again, you come together with your stakeholders and define some dimensions that should go in there, right? So don't make it too complicated. If you start with a matrix of 10 to 20 potential factors that go inside there, yeah, then you start again with the bullshit bingo and more doing this. Restrict yourself to 4, maybe, yeah, up to 4 or 5 maximum factors that go in there. And obviously it's usually something like, okay, how many customers would need that, or how many customers would benefit from this functionality. You could also have things going in there. Is there legal requirements that actually need to do it, which automatically usually boosts it? Things like this can go into this value score as well, right? I'm just saying, not make it too complicated, because otherwise then, yeah, you spend just time on that discussing.
Thank you.
Ronny.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Alexandre. We have some difficulties to show to the business areas the importance to know the value of something. And even for them is sometimes difficult. Do you have some exercise or examples or things that help them, the business, to identify the value? Some things that for them to better understand how important it is for us that work in developing software, developing the applications, doing the job, how important it is to have the value to also do first things that has more value for them, but also to show the team how the application works in terms of value, and also to make the team to have ideas, be critical about things. Do you have an experience, an exercise that you do with the business area in order to show them the importance of this?
So I have, being a product owner for 14 years, I have been into these discussions many times, so I can feel your pain.
Yeah.
What I came to do was that I'm not discussing about what is more value, like the question, how much is the value? But what I started to ask my stakeholders is, what happens if we don't develop it? This might sound simple, but it turns it into a whole different perspective. Because if you now have to find reasons, good reasons to do things, good reasons are way better to compare than to just make up some reasons to do something, right? So really ask your stakeholders, what happens if we do not develop this function? Because then you have to think backwards of the problem. For example, users will not be able to register. Okay, so what? And then you can start. And then you come to a point where you compare the opportunity costs. The opportunity costs of not doing things. And we should always remember, you as a product owner, you should maximize the things that you don't develop, right? That's a goal. So try to think in terms of opportunity costs. It's not always easy, it's more hard, but it will help you. And it will also put the stakeholder on a spot to think about it. Why do I actually really want that? Who is participating, or who is actually benefiting from it? Because that's also a question that is not always clear. Who's actually benefiting from features? That would be my advice.
Okay, thank you.
I guess we had also something in the chat.
Yes, we have a question from Thane. Average velocity can be flawed if the team is still in early stages. If velocity is fluctuating a lot. What do you think about that, Ronny?
Well, I mean, it doesn't has much influence on this method itself. It's just that, yeah, of course, your value score will change more often, but this is just as your velocity does at the beginning. So, but it's changing for all of the issues, right? So you might come that you have a lot of fluctuation at the beginning that you can deal with or have to deal with. But it's the same with velocity. At the beginning, your velocity is really unstable, and this is why you probably would not do forecasting based on only 1 or 2 sprints. You should wait for at least 3 to 4 sprints to get into a stable velocity. And of course, this method benefits from a stable velocity. Is the question answered? Hopefully. Okay.
Yes,
no,
thanks.
no protest means agreement.
Yeah, Finn just answered on chat that
okay.
yes, it is answered. Thank you. So Pedro Almeida, would you like to share something? You shared something on the chat. Do you want me to read it?
Something more on the chat?
Yeah, Pedro Almeida is saying, do you think we can use gamification with stakeholders to get the value points? And then he completed with, like, each stakeholder has X value points. Where do you like to invest them? Something like that.
Yeah, well, then the question is, then your value point is actually, then it goes more into direction of stakeholder management, right? Just because somebody gets some points doesn't mean that the feature has, or the thing that he wants has more value. You can do that, but then don't be of the imagination that you build the most valuable thing. You probably build the most valuable thing for your most important stakeholder, which is fine as well. You can do that. But if I see this more than in the direction of stakeholder management than really to come to an value-based product backlog. But that's my opinion, like.
Any other questions to Ronny?
Shoot.
But don't kill.
Yeah. Good thing in online meetings. No more questions?
Yeah, I have one, Ronny. So,
come on, Sarah.
Yes, I also have questions.
Okay.
So how do you do this when you have more than one team? So imagine that you have several teams working on the same product. So they're working on the same code base. When you estimate, and value points is throughout the backlog, so that's more product owner things, but story points, how do you do this with several teams? Do you think we can find that base of comparison within all the teams, or do you think every team should have their own base for comparison? But then forecasting with different teams having different terms of comparison becomes much more challenging. So do you have any hints on that?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously it doesn't make sense to compare the value score if you are working with different teams that have different velocities estimates, right? Then it doesn't work anymore. But what you can do is that usually for even if you have different teams working on a product, you usually have the same stakeholders. I mean, it's seldom that they totally differ, right? So my advice would be, and this is also partially done in the SAFe framework, that you come together with the stakeholders, you define the value score, right? And then you take this value score and compare it for the teams with their velocity, the teams that would actually do it, right? So you have a stable base of value points coming from the stakeholders and an individual part that comes from the teams.
Okay, so for forecasting, you would need to know which team is going to do what subset of value of users.
Exactly, or you come to have mutual sprint plannings and have all teams working on the same velocity or the same estimates. I've seen that, well, I have seen approaches trying to do that. Would I recommend this? No, I would not. Why? Because first of all, having refinement meetings with 40 developers, well, good luck. Have fun.
Yeah,
Maybe
I know
there
how
are
it
some,
feels.
exactly. So, and it also starts with this comparison game. Like, why is this team needing 13 story points and you're needing 20? Especially from stakeholders that are not really familiar with story points and relative estimates. So I do not have really positive experience with that. So yeah, it would need at least to have some idea of what is the what team is doing what, or if you don't need it that fine granular, you can just say, okay, we take an average velocity from the 4 teams based on the fact they all work on a scale that it is at least equal, something like from 0 to 100. Then you can make an average. If there is a statistic person in this room, he or she will probably kill him or herself now when I say that. You can do it. It's dirty. It really is dirty, but you can do that if you want to do it.
Okay, thanks, Ronnie.
Welcome. Silence.
Any other questions from anyone?
No, one more from my side. Ronnie, one thing is estimating or defining the estimated value score for a given feature, but have you ever measured the real value that was delivered to the customer?
Yeah, that is really a good point, right? What is actually the real value?
Yes, yes.
It's
just normal to stick with the estimation for just for the backlog prioritization sake.
It's like a value retrospective, right? To see if
right.
the value
yes,
that you assumed finally turned out. Did I do that? No, I didn't do that because I guess especially in B2C environment, it is really hard. Like, what is really the goal? Like, how do you know that if you gave a value points of 1,000, what is the equality to to 1,000 value points? And this is why we do relative estimates. However, what you should reflect is how successful is a feature that you actually develop, and give it KPIs, right? So if you say that your feature has a value score of 1,000 points, it should have a great impact on one of your main business KPIs, right? This would also be an argument when talking about what are the dimensions that you take for giving that value point, that they should have a major impact on your main business KPIs or product KPIs. And you should measure that. It's not always easy. We all know that, but highly recommended. And then you can again compare, like if you have a proven feature that really increased to the extent your KPI, to the extent oh. George, you want to say something? No? Okay. Yeah, then you can you should have in dimension, yeah.
Ronny, just one point that it makes, that turns the value comparison really funny, is when you are a PO of a platform in a big company and you deliver service in this platform for different business areas. So people start to fight in terms of, well, my future will improve and return more value to the company. But in fact, what I could see is that people doesn't measure it after it is deployed?
Of course, then it's there. Why bother?
So this is another tricky point that I think it's really important. I would like to check your opinion to also improve the culture of measure after you put it in production and use it in the next prioritization. For example, you came with 3 user stories, a high value, and we delivered it. It was fine, but when you measure, your 1,000 business value was in fact 2 business value. So you please review your criteria of business value. So I think it's also important for the PO to have something to really measure if what the business area said that returns value, if it really returned the value that was expected. And we need to have the, how can I say, the top manager to approve this kind of thing and reinforce these points. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, you just perfectly phrased it, right? I mean, you as a product owner, you're not always have the opportunity to really check when a business area comes to you and says this is of high value, right? You can then try to follow up on this, and then, as I said, I would ask different way around, like what happens if we don't deliver it, right? So you're getting some input from this side. And also, again, asking, okay, what effect will it have on which KPI? And this is something that you as a PO, you can follow up, and you should follow up, right? Because in the end, it's your responsibility to make sure that your team is working on the most valuable things.
Yes.
Yeah, be tough, be strong, ask what effect will it have on our KPI and why, and then afterwards measure it. If you can't measure it, it's unicorn fantasy.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
We have
Go
so
ahead,
many.
Paulo, again.
Paulo.
No,
Paulo
I
always
don't have
have
any.
questions.
Yeah, you have.
Vamos lá. Agora
They're always
vai.
good, so.
No more questions. We have so many Sophias in the call, but I didn't get one question.
Anyone else has a question there? Yeah, go ahead.
As I have, it's maybe it's a basic one, but sometimes we are working in a team where we are not so mature, then we are estimating with hours instead of story points. Then how would be the best approach to move from days and hours to story points, and then try to improve even more using value estimation? And how can I do that? What are your advice?
Well, I mean, some people they can come up with, okay, you also actually follow this approach. If you measured something in hours, you take the one that is of highest estimate, and then you take the task that is of lowest estimate in terms of hours. You put them on a scale, and your highest estimated story would then be 100, and your lowest would then probably be a 1 or a half. I don't work with half points. I don't know who came up with the stupid half points. Does anybody use half story points? Okay, you do. Okay, sorry, Sarah. Sorry. Sorry, didn't say that.
I don't, but the developers who I work with sometimes do when
Okay.
it's really a small thing.
Okay. So whatever, but I guess you got the point, right? So take the one that is estimated highest, give it 100. Take the one lowest, take it half a point if you want to, and then sort in the next round, in the next estimate that you do, throw away hours and just ask, is this more, is this less, and give them the scale. And then you will see after 1 or 2 iterations doing that, you will get used to it. In my experience, teams get pretty fast used to story points if you enforce it. You have to enforce it. The Scrum Master somehow needs to enforce it a little bit, because otherwise it's this, yeah, usually backdraft to the hours again. And again, if your teams feel comfortable with just using hours, let them calculate in hours. The problem with hours is that there will be a smart manager that adds up hours and says, you just developed, I don't know, 120 hours in the sprint, but you're 5 people and it's 2 weeks. So where are all the other hours gone? And then you have fun. So I just recommend not doing it. It just causes stupid discussions.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Gianpaolo. I would like just to make an appointment. I don't think people got us wrong, but we didn't mention that it would be an advanced class. So don't be afraid of asking kind of basic questions. I think Ronny would be happy to answer any basic questions. Actually, here in Agile Connect meetups, we often go back to basics because we know that many people are coming nowadays to the community, and it's very not rare that people are facing these topics for the first time. So if you have a basic question, throw it out. I think we will be happy to help you with that.
Yeah.
Can we do also hard questions?
You can do dumb questions. It's a safe to fail environment.
Exactly. It's a sandbox. What happens in Meetup stays in Meetup.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts regarding the no estimation framework or this thing?
To be honest, I haven't tried it out yet. I have seen it being introduced once. I didn't apply it. I've seen it being introduced. This time I saw it. It failed, but this was just one case. And this is also, I have to say, because it was not introduced very well. So I can pretty much see that it would be an advancement, like really, because this is the very nature of empirically driven approach, right? This is really what actually empirism is about. So I really like the idea. I really like the concept. I also can believe it can work. But I guess that the prerequisites for doing it are really high. So you really have to have a stable environment for a long time. You really have to have experienced teams, and way more than that, you really have a management that has to accept this way of doing it. And most managers are already challenged when you say, okay, we do our estimates in relative dimensions, right? But if you are in that stage, I really think that it can work, and I would love to see it working, because I believe in the theory. I really do. I just haven't seen it working in practice, but this is just maybe because I have not been in such an advanced team yet. But in general, I like the concept.
Okay, thanks.
I would, though, not recommend it for any team starting with doing whatever, Agile, like Scrum, Kanban, whatsoever. This is really something that you should advance to and not start with. That was not a dumb, simple question. Is this what you consider dumb? And I don't want to have the heavy ones. Jesus Christ.
Actually, this was a kind of advanced question.
I was just like, oh, now come the dumb, and it's two, and the easy ones, and then he goes with that.
Any other questions there?
Probably you already told. What are the main challenges of this kind of approaches? Like when the teams start doing this, what usually with your experience you see are the main challenges of the teams?
Do we still talk about no estimate, or do we?
No. With regarding estimations, sorry.
Yeah, well, so first of all, I guess one thing, because we are all drilled to do it, is that teams still remain in this absolute measurement thing, like how many hours, and they usually think in hours. So I guess this is something that you have to overcome. One thing that I can recommend doing is magic estimation. So it's kind of what we did here. You start with t-shirt sizes. That is a little easier because story points, you have to get used to it. T-shirt sizes is something that everybody knows, I guess. This is something easy to start with. But I would do it only on an epic level, because what you want to say, I can deliver 3S and 1XL. Obviously, this will not work. But if you start, if you want to start with relative estimates, I would say start with epics and start with t-shirt sizes, so that you say, okay, everybody knows t-shirt sizes and everybody has a dimension of t-shirt sizes, and then start doing this magic estimation like we did. What is an XXL and what is an S, and then sort things. And once people have performed this 1 or 2 times, then they usually also get the concept of story points quite quickly. Like this is then a smaller step if you then as if you would just dive directly into this concept of story points.
Okay, I have one more question regarding.
Now Pedro is on fire.
Yes, regarding some behaviors that some teams has, like at the end of the sprint, they are in the middle of one user story that they estimate as imagine as an 8. And then some teams would like to review the estimation. What do you think about that process?
Well, the thing is, why do you do the estimation? Because you want to be good in estimation? I mean, is it the goal
that is a
at the
very
end?
good answer.
So
I know the answer, but
so this is what I tell teams. So yeah, of course. And I also have this discussion, like when you have done a sprint and you're not done with the stories, they want to re-estimate them to now give it really the proper number. And I just say, you can do that every time. Then you go through your backlog and adjust it. But then you're more busy with estimate than actually working. So don't concentrate on the estimate because of the purpose of estimation. Estimation should just give you an idea, is your vehicle to give your commitment. So spend as less time on estimate, I would say, as possible. So don't bother doing it.
Okay, another question. So,
Pedro, but there are other people in the chat too.
Okay, but
no, come on.
I see a lot of silent moments. Sorry. So one other thing that I usually I forgot the question. Come on.
Mission accomplished.
Come on. It was regarding what?
So maybe you think about it, and we answered the question of Tena. My Portuguese is horrible. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but
no, it's yeah, she's American, so Thin.
Oh, Thin is she had a surgery, so we have to read.
She can talk.
Yeah,
I can read. They want to estimate how many of the story points are left to do and will carry over to the next sprint. Is that a bad thing?
Is it a bad thing? Yeah, I have this discussion with my teams very often as well. Again, this goes back to you want to be precise. I mean, the thing is, as long as you do the things constantly the same way, it is okay, because then your velocity always needs to be based on your same behavior. If you re-estimate once after every sprint, then you have to do it every time, right? So you need to be constant. So this is why I'm saying, if you start doing this, you need to keep up with it. Otherwise, your velocity is not, you cannot take your velocity for any commitment. So what I tell the teams is, it is not about accuracy. It is about, yes, in the very first sprint, you probably have some leftover and the number is not representative for what is left. But this is the same for every sprint. So every sprint is wrong in the same way. And this is what it's all about. You need to stick to a statistic base, which is constant. And I always say, stick with your number, because re-estimating, what does it mean? You have to go over your backlog after every sprint and re-estimate, because now things might getting less difficult or complex. Then you come to a point where you do more estimate than actually doing things. So I recommend people just keep with your numbers, and this will have the same effect, just as long as you keep with it.
It's like a learning process, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Pedro walked away. Remember the question.
Yes.
Now you have it.
Yes.
Prepare.
No. It's regarding the uncertainty that usually the teams has when they try or they want, or that when they are on the estimation session or during the refinement. Usually the teams are uncomfortable when they don't have completely certainty of what they will do. You have any strategy to help them to bring some, it's not clarity, but some, I don't know the word for this.
What's the Portuguese word?
To be calm, to don't worry about it. Come on, that is not really important. We never know everything at every detail. And some teams, what they usually has is to, okay, let's do a spike, for instance, to try to figure out very deeply what is the technical challenges that we have. What do you think about this? And on the other hand, if you have any strategy to help them to be more calm and to not be stressed with this kind of exercise.
Mm-hmm. So I guess first thing that, especially for unexperienced young teams, is that they have to accept that when doing software development, usually we are in what we call a complex scenario, which means you're doing the things that you usually do for the first time, because who is developing the same software again and again and again, right? So every feature that you develop is something new. You might have done that, something equal, something similar, but in fact, every feature is new. It's not like a car production that the first car is produced just like the second, like the third, like the 10,000th car, right? Everything is a new invention. And having to deal with this complexity is something I can understand, and of course causes trouble, but making people aware that you are operating in a complex situation when doing software development helps the team probably to calm down. Because if I know, okay, you are in a section, in a scenario where it is tough to do estimates. And this is exactly why we use agile methodologies like Scrum that help us to overcome this complexity, right? So first, make people aware you're operating in a complex situation. It's totally fine that you struggle giving estimates. Second of all, just as you said, uncertainty is an indicator, and it is an important indicator. So if you see that your team has high uncertainty, I wouldn't say this is something to fight. This is something to actually react on. So if people say, we really have no clue what to do and how to do, and I have no clue how to estimate, and this is why I give it 100, don't tell them, come on, Don't give it 100. You think it's way more complex than it actually is. Do a spike. Maybe even if you think that it is not that complex, but have the team doing it. Get the team to have more certainty, getting more mature with it. Have to have them spike, tell them, okay, we do one sprint, just a spike to find that out, right? They will gain then certainty. Or if you see something is of high uncertainty, what you usually should do is cut it smaller, make it less complex. Find out how you can reduce the uncertainty, because uncertainty usually comes from features, task, issues, whatsoever that have not been really cut to a decent size. And you can make things very, very small if you want to.
Yes, but that is another challenge for the teams, to slice the work in a very small things that bring value at the end to the customers or to the final user.
Mm-hmm. It is.
I have a couple more questions, but I would like to pass the ball to someone else.
Okay, so anyone else on the audience has questions, or should we go with Pedro? Speak up. I guess it's you, Pedro.
Okay.
It's just
Thank
us,
you.
Pedro. Let's get comfortable with each other.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, basically what I would
we are
like
happy
to...
here, Pedro, looking at your personal meetup, your personal meeting with Ronny.
It's amazing. That was my dream. So, okay, so now I would like to understand your opinion regarding the buffer. So when the teams in order to solve this kind lack of maturity regarding estimates, they use buffers to share, okay, imagine that we have our backlog estimated, then they start to doing, okay, how much time do you, or how much sprints do you need to do X or Y? They usually do the calculation by, okay, our velocity is this one, let's have here a buffer on top of it. What do you think regarding this kind of techniques to communicate somehow the estimates?
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, the buffering problem.
Yeah.
Where does this buffering actually come from? I mean, this is pretty much coming actually from a waterfall approach, right? So I know I have no clue, but I need to give a timeline. So I give a timeline and I add a buffer, right? So, but this is exactly what I tell teams is, this is exactly why we don't use a linear scale, but we use an exponential scale of Fibonacci, because the uncertainty is exactly in the higher number, or the increasing steps of story points, right? So this is why, if you don't know if it is a 20, if you are not comfortable, the next thing that you can do is that you give it a 40, and there is your buffer. Exactly, there is your buffer, right? You don't need to add something to it because it's in the scale already. You have to make people understand, and this is exactly why we don't say, besides Sarah, it's 30.5 points, but we giving those steps, and this is what people have to understand. The buffer is exactly, this is why we use Fibonacci for. And I agree with Thien. They should not be scared to not finish a sprint. Of course, a commitment is a commitment, and we're all trying. We give a forecast. We're trying to reach the commitment. But being a Scrum Master, you really have to see what is the reason. If people are really scared to not reach a sprint goal, then there's something terribly going wrong. If people are scared, of course, it should not be a sprint goal, yes or no. But being scared is not a good basis for estimates.
Yeah, that's true. And how do you react when the management see an estimation like a due date or a specific date?
Well, I mean, based on what we saw today, so usually I don't try to train management to understand story points anymore. I did that in my early days. I don't know who of you did that as well. And please, if somebody, yes, you did, who of you succeeded? Who of you really succeeded?
None of us.
I think no one. And by the
Caramba.
20th time, yes, by the 20th time explaining that story points do not convert to time
Exactly.
is kind of the hard one, I would say.
Exactly. So
They understand blah, 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 time,
exactly.
time, deadline, deadline, deadline.
Exactly. Yeah. But when is it ready? So I save my time explaining story points to management up to from a certain level upwards. But this is again exactly why this forecasting is so important. So if you come to talk to the management, don't start saying, okay, this is la story points and our velocity is X story points and blah, blah, blah. But you as a product owner or as a Scrum Master, actually everybody that is a little bit familiar with this technique can say, okay, based on our priorities, this feature will be done in weeks with a certainty of Y. Important is your certainty, because if your velocity varies very much, then you cannot use it for forecasting. And this is also a KPI that is really hardly tracked with teams, I have to say. Who of you measures the range of your velocities? Exactly, right? Nobody does. So this is why I also always tell our teams when we do our coachings, I say, just velocity means nothing. If your velocity goes up and down and up and down, it is no basis for any prediction. So take a look, you should be in a convenience interval of 90%. This is what you should aim for. If you are at this 90%, this is a good base for you to do predictions. If it's not, you need to work on this. Then you really have to figure out why you are so unstable in your velocity. So, but spend your energy on this and not explaining to your CEO what a story point is. It's just a waste of time, of his time and yours, believe me.
Anyone else has any last question as we are reaching the top of the hour?
Scene is really writing much. I'm trying to keep up with that. Yeah, rolling average.
And keeping an eye on what makes it go up and down.
Exactly. So that's exactly for the statistical people. It is the rolling average that you should have an eye on. 3 sprints, I think is, yeah, I would go back to 5, 6 maybe, but anyway, 3 is fine as well.
Any last question popping up there? Any last comment?
Are you used to use some technique like to have reference user stories to compare, to be more easier to compare between the user stories to give the estimations and this kind of thing?
Well, that's exactly what I said when you start with that. You take user stories that you actually developed, and then you say, okay, this is the one that has been a 40, 100, and you take one that is really few effort that has been a 1, and then you have something that that people can refer to. Should be one that already have been developed and proven to be accepted. Yeah, this really was a 1, right? So people really have a dimension to say, okay, yeah, this is really small and this has been really small. Mike, say something to us.
Mike is shy today. Pedro is taking all the holophones.
Hi. I'm
Mike,
trying
unmute
to
yourself.
do different kind of questions to different kind of levels of difficulty to everyone to understand a little bit about this.
I guess, but these are all valid questions, Pedro. I really appreciate those. And I guess we all have those issues and know those issues. So.
And we all learn a little bit from
Exactly.
exchanging these experiences. So thank you, Pedro and Ronny. Any last thing popping up? Okay, so thank you all for coming. I would like to thank again Ronny for sharing with us his experience and his knowledge, and for answering all these questions. And
Sure. Was my pleasure.
So thank you, Ronny. So one last thing from us, we posted the fun retro link, so you can give us your feedback on the session. I saw a lot of people already put in some comments there. So it's on the chat if you want to join and share something or give some more feedback. So Leander just published it again. So thank you all for coming.
You can share your LinkedIn profile.
You can
also.
share your LinkedIn profile there if you want to connect. Thank you all for coming once again. This is what makes the community. So any last words, anyone? So Leander, you want to add anything?
And I don't know if any of you just saw today, we launched the Agile Connect Day, October the 10th. Be prepared for a full day of talks, workshops, open conversations, and cenas. Whatever you would like to share and to learn and contribute to the community, feel free. Subscribe on the Meetup page. We will probably full your social media with announcements in the few days. About this. And be prepared, attend, propose something. Let's make this day awesome. Think about in 1 hour and a half, all the funny stuff that all the fun that we had and all the learning that we could get. Think about this in one entire day. This is it.
October 10th.
For free? For free.
For free.
For free.
Yeah,
yes, for free. Of course it is for free. Yes, of course it's for free.
Thank you.
For free.
We are a non-profit community as well. No, Pedro is one of the founders.
Is it, if it's for free, I don't want it.
Yeah, nothing is for free. No, you have to participate. That's all that we ask you in return. Yeah.
Food for
thought. Do you
we
accept donations?
Sorry, when will that be?
You can pay making questions. You know, Pedro does that.
Pedro is so poor today.
So it's October 10th.
When is that gonna happen? October 10th. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just write it on your agenda, and we'll be keeping you posted either on Meetup, through Slack. We have our community Slack.
Yeah, we will receive the update through Meetup for the event, right?
Yeah, you should already have it there. It's already launched. Not on every community, I think. We're still missing, right, Leander?
Missing Aveiro and Coimbra, but it will be launched soon.
I'm from Aveiro. That's why I didn't see it.
Yeah, it will be launched very soon. Okay, and you can just sign in any of the communities. It's all together day. Okay, so thank you all.
Thanks.
And
thank you.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ok, o Matthies já saiu. Pronto.
Sim.
Pensei que ele
Acho
ainda
que
estaria
perdemos
aí.
o Ronny. E a Sofia.